Welcome back to News Check. Thank you indeed so much for joining us. And you do remember that tomorrow the whole world, including Kenya, will be celebrating the International Women's Day. Well, Kenya did begin that celebration a little bit earlier last week, with the president talking about a number of issues and also talking about bridging the gap, and especially the gender gap, when we talk about women affairs. And joining me now are two distinguished women. Thank you indeed so much for joining us. And to begin with, happy International Women's Day. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Julianne Njue, who is a governance expert, and just next to her we have Honorable Cynthia Muge, who is the Nandi County MP, or if you like, the woman rep for Nandi County. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
And because of the interest of time, I will go straight to what we had lined up for you this morning. And yesterday, the president also did mention that, and actually, just to quote some of the things that are going to be happening, is that youth and women from Starehe area are the primary beneficiaries of more than 5,000 job opportunities after the launch of 6,700 units of affordable housing project in Nairobi. There's something that the president did mention that that caught my eye, that the discrimination and the abuse that women have been, and especially working in the construction industry, have been facing will be a thing of the past. This is something that gives women more power.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you to our viewers. My name is Julia Njue from University of Nairobi and Premier Peak Leadership Foundation. I'm so happy to be here. Okay. And having said what the president said yesterday, it was very exciting. It is very good. And you know, construction industry is a man's job. You know, a long time ago, before this liberation of women movements and all that, women first of all didn't even own an ID. Women didn't own land. Women didn't do these manual jobs. You know, they didn't go for engineering courses. They didn't go for construction jobs because they were meant to be for the men. But things have changed, and we thank God in this country, because now women can be able to do those manual jobs and earn as much. But as we go around the workplaces, we find that women, most of the time, they are humiliated, they are sexually harassed, you know, and sometimes because they don't know the route very well, they'll be harassed, and sometimes they even work and they're not paid, you know. Their certificates, I've spoken to a few construction women, their certificates are not approved before you give this due amount of money, or you sleep with so-and-so. So I am very happy the president actually is addressing that issue. Because when you talk about women empowerment, empowerment means even those kind of abuse and sexual harassment, especially, they are not there. Because I wonder, why would a woman be harassed sexually and a man is not, you know, with all due respect, you know? Sometimes they want to unclothe you, you know, because maybe you are big, or you are small, or you are tall, or you are short, you know. But for the men, nobody complains about them, you know. So I am very happy that we've been fighting for equality is actually at the door. So I am very happy, and I want to wish all the women in KBC happy International Women's Day, and all the women of Kenya happy International Women's Day.
Indeed, thank you so much. And indeed, some of my camera persons are women, and even my producers and directors
they're there, right there.
So happy International Women's Day. And Mheshimiwa, to begin with, the head of state, since he took over office, he has put women on a pedestal that a lot of countries would only yearn to maybe to copy or something. And looking at what he has been able to do, remember the last parliament, the Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga had given an advisory that it should be disbanded because it didn't observe the 2/3 gender rule. In as much as we haven't been able to hit that target yet, the head of state in his campaigns had talked about 50% of all positions will be women. That was not actualized, but at least he did actualize the 2/3 gender rule. And something else that he also mentioned is that he is going to be a champion of issues that are affecting women, including FGM. I would like you to touch on that.
Thank you so much. My name is Cynthia Muge, a woman from Nandi County. It's a pleasure to be here today, especially on the eve or the day just before International Women's Day. So I want to take this opportunity to wish all the Kenyan women and women in the world a happy International Day. It's a very important day, so to speak, and it is a day that has come a long way. It is a day that has come from 1952, when women were not allowed to have organizations. In 1952, they ended up having one, and in 2021, we actually broke the ceiling and had the first Chief Justice being a woman. So it's a great day to celebrate women achievements socially, economically, politically, and in all aspects and spheres of life. And it's also a day to be able to create awareness, and it is also a day to be able to call for action in regards to the things that you still yearn for as women. I want to say that on the comments that the President has been making since we were out there in campaigns, of course since 2021 and 2022, we must have lost some of them, but we still remember the very important ones, especially on a very important day like this. Those were the promises that were made in regards to women. The President is that we have right now, that is William Samoei Ruto, His Excellency, is a very deliberate president. He's deliberate in what he says and even what he does. Of course, he's not had the time to be able to action all the things that he has been saying, but he's a very deliberate president. Of course, when he mentioned about the 50% cabinet, apart from him, there is no other president in this country who has given women the number of opportunities that he gave women in this country. He gave them a lot of opportunities, something that has never been done before by anyone else. In light of the advice by CJ Maraga, that he said that Bunge should be dissolved. Of course, it's the first thing that we were able to, that was brought to our attention. You know, when you get to Parliament every other time, the things that were left pending and the things that qualify to be brought back to the House are always given to you as some sort of handover report from the previous Parliament. So that was part of the handover report from the 12th Parliament to the 13th Parliament, where I sit. I have the privilege, courtesy of the people of Nandi, to be a member of the 13th Parliament. The same issue came up that we are not meeting the gender rule, and so Parliament should be dissolved. But I want to say this, just like I said, the President, being the very deliberate person that I said he is, he actually took his time, sat down, and called a meeting. We have attended a meeting as Parliament in regards to the same issue of sorting out the 2/3 gender rule, not more than 2/3 gender rule. In that sitting, we were able to deliberate on a number of things verbally, but he went ahead. He's a very keen person, and actually did a write-up, some sort of a proposal that was brought to Parliament in regards to how and what is the formula we're going to actually use to be able to sort out the not more than 2/3 gender rule. So when you see that, you are looking at someone who is not only keen, but actually is geared towards ensuring that we are meeting the 2/3 gender rule, not more than 2/3 gender rule, for purposes of women and for purposes of equality in this country. So I want to say that the women of this country support his initiatives, and as women in Parliament, by the way, we have been able to sit with his official, Madam Harriet Shigai, who is best in State House. Her job is actually to look at the gender issues. Of course, the problem here is when we say gender, people construe it to mean women. It's not really about women. You know, at some point it could be, you know, there are some sectors, if you look at statistics right now, you look at primary school teachers, yeah, there are more women than men. So when we talk about gender and affirmative action, if you're going to do it in primary school teachers, you're going to be doing affirmative for men. So we should stop thinking about gender as a female or a women's issue. It's an all-round issue. It's for all the sexes, the female and the male genders. But we appreciate and we give all our support and the expertise that we have. Of course, my friend here is a governance expert, Madam Shega. I am sure, and I have seen her, of course, give support to the policies and the suggestions that are being made in regards to ensuring that we have a better, not more than 2/3 gender policy, and most importantly, its implementation, so that we have a place that is equal, a country that is equal. So
and it's a good thing you've mentioned the implementation part, because at the end of the day in Kenya, we always have issues on the implementation phase. We have very good policy, very good laws, but unfortunately when it comes to the implementation, that is where, and that is what I want to come with Julia, because still on implementation phase, other than the cabinet and also the CESs and the CASs, looking at the CASs that have been mooted, looking at the PSs, but we haven't really actualized that gender parity that we require, and so much we are keen to follow. It's a good thing that Mheshimiwa has pointed out to Kenyans that at the end of the day, when you talk about matters gender, it always comes up as if we're talking about matters women, but we also have to look at the boy child as well. And we are going to look at that as we wind up, because I believe we're giving a lot of preference on the gender issue on the side of women, and also we also need to empower the boy. I would like you to touch on that. The appointments, as they're all being made, the few that we've seen in terms of in CSs, PSAs, the CASs nomination list, and also the parastatals chiefs. They have not quite actualized the two-thirds gender rule.
I want to first of all congratulate the president once again, because when he was getting his cabinet, we saw women were selected and were appointed, and there we are. Of course, we have not hit the two-third gender rule. Actually, I remember in the Kenya Kwanza Women Charter, it is said about 50%. And that was a very heavy commitment, and women signed, we signed that, and that's where we are. So he has tried, and I know with the time, it's going to be actualized. That one I'm very sure, because government has not yet settled completely, because we still have very many vacancies. We still have very many people who are acting. We have very many people who, the vacancies that are there, and therefore the president should be able to actually do that. But then it also boils down to the people around him. You know, this weekend I had an opportunity to actually meet the president one-on-one. I was awarded the Resilience Award, and yes, and I'm very grateful. I very grateful to this country, the women of Kenya. When I was the only one who was given the Resilience Award, were 9 of us, and I had an opportunity to speak with him, and I will not say it here, but I can tell you he is a committed person towards women. He is very committed. And you know, women, we form 51% of the population, and that's not a population you can wish away. When he talked of he brought the presidential memo, or the letter for lack of a better word, or maybe for a layman's person to understand, he was talking about the two-third gender rule. Because you see, that judgment is still in place, you know, and we don't want to go into a situation whereby you look like he is cheating Kenyans, or that rule is not being observed. But I know the challenge that we have from where I sit is the way we are going to, the formula. The formula is the issue here. Because if him or the people around him, let's not look at parliament, just the women, the 360 members. You know, the 360, I believe, 349. Let's look at the Senate, let's look at even the speaker, let's look at everybody in the whole house. Then we remove, and we get to see where are we. Otherwise, if you look at the 349, then it's going to be very hard because of the wage bill. You know, the wage bill, the way people have been complaining about the wage bill.
But it's not Parliament that has not actualized the two-thirds gender rule.
It has not actualized, but you know, the challenge is the formula. So the formula has to be thought well, and people have to come together, and the formula that will work best for them is not the 349 looking at it. It's the whole, everybody who is included, everybody in the legislature, you know, the ones who are in Parliament, Senate, and all that, so that we can be able to achieve this. Otherwise, if we go on like that, it is going to be a tall order for them. But I know he promised over the weekend, he promised that we are going to have more women being nominated. So there is more room for improvement.
I'm still going to pick it from where we've mentioned he promised.
Yes.
Remember, when you guys signed the Women Charter, sometimes back in November?
Yeah, June.
Sorry, in June, July there.
Yeah.
And you know, that is more or less like a commitment, Mheshimiwa.
It is.
And if I promised you something, you should hold me to account. And we have seen, in as much as Parliament has not been able to achieve that because of a number of factors, but in terms of the other positions that have been given out, I believe there are some positions that he can show goodwill and do exactly what he said and what he signed in the Women Charter. That has also been challenged by the opposition as to why did you promise our good ladies that you're going to do this for them and you haven't done that. And we cannot see that in other positions other than the CSs, all the positions that have been given, women who have been holding the short end of the stick.
looking at it from a layman's view, I want to say that that is how it looks like. But I want to say we also need to really appreciate the efforts that have been made towards achieving it. Number one, especially in the leadership of the House, it's been so long since we had a deputy speaker who is a female. I want to tell you this, the reason why he actually stood firm, there were many other suitable men that really wanted to be the deputy speakers of the House, but he stood firm and said that this time around we are going to have a woman, courtesy of the women charter that we assigned at Nyayo Stadium. He ensured that he saw that happen. Number two, he has given and shown the goodwill. There is no other party that sponsored and gave the UDA tickets to people who are running for positions like senators and single constituency MPs and governors as UDA. They gave the tickets where it mattered. For other parties, they actually gave the ticket whether there was they were there or not there, it would have made no difference. But he gave it to people that he saw that these ones have an opportunity. And courtesy of that, we have more women from single constituency MPs elected, and we have more governors from the counties elected as governors. To speak to the matter of CSS and PSS, and of course what we are waiting for the CSS, of course we expect more CSS to be appointed who will be women. We have been reminding the president every other time. There's a women caucus in the National Assembly that has women leaders, parliamentarians, both from the Senate and the National Assembly. Of course, we are trying to also cascade it down to the county assembly so that we have an umbrella that covers all the women in leadership. In that particular group that he actually communicates to us through, he's a very not very hard to reach person. We actually hold him to account. You see, those sometimes there's propaganda of this, the list of the people who are going to be given the opportunity to be PS and all that. We normally count. We actually count in red. 1, 2, 3, and we're like, President, we are not even meeting the 2/3 or their third or whatever figure. And of course, he is actually interested enough to explain that, you see, we have to balance the politics, we have to balance the expertise, and we also have to balance the gender issue. He's been doing so well. If you were to ask me, myself, personally, my own personal opinion, he's been doing so well. And I can tell you this, I have never seen a government where you see a lot and a good number of women in lists, even the parastatals, even the membership of the boards. I have never seen a government that you see more women. Previously, it was, you look at it and you expect all men, or most men, or just for you to meet the constitutional requirements, you put a few women. So I want to say that the president is really keen on it. Of course, I said earlier that he has not had the time. He's been on office for 6 months. He has not had the adequate time to ensure that he rolls out all his plans that he has for the women of Kenya. So we give him some more time to be able to fill up all the other positions available. Then we can talk conclusively and say this is what he managed and this is what he did not manage. Right now, I think he's doing pretty well, and I think the women of Kenya actually appreciate it.
Okay, and you know, there are quite some goodies, if you ask me. For the last 6 months he's been in office, almost 6 months he's been in office, you can see that there's some goodies. He actually tripled the Women Enterprise Fund and also removed the bureaucracy that was there. Actually tripled 4.5 billion to 13.5 billion,
yes.
almost 3 times. And he has removed a lot of bureaucracy just to give women a more fighting chance and when it comes to opportunities, because just like Mheshimiwa has talked about, this is the time that we have the most elected women of any time ever. But in as much as we are looking at this, there are so many challenges that women still in the country are still grappling with, and you can attest, being a governance expert, that the FGM issue is still a thorn in the flesh. And we were talking about, we were talking about, I think it was by 2030 we're supposed to have done away with FGM totally in the country. But looking at where we are now, there are so many challenges that the girl child and the woman of Kenya is currently facing. I'm going to talk about cultural practices. Mheshimiwa will also chip in with that.
Yeah, some of the few or the many challenges that women face. Number one is we live in a very patriarchal society. Indeed, very patriarchal, extremely patriarchal. I have vied for Member of Parliament Kangima, and I'm talking from experience. I have seen, and I saw, I would go for meetings, and men and women are there, but then they are like, hey, we will get a woman, tutapata mwanamke. You know, there is that connotation of people are still looking at women as not as readers. It's still not very well appreciated. Number two is that our women are not economically empowered like our men counterpart, you know. And you find when you're going for a campaign or you're buying a house or you're buying a car and all that, a man, if you go to the showroom, a man will be attended to you first. You could even be mheshimiwa. You know, like if we go, they'll look at you, hey, jamaa amekuja, mwenye pesa. You know, even the bill, for example, if you go to a hotel and you eat and all that, and maybe I'm the one who had invited you for lunch, the bill will be given to the man. So that patriarchal society is still, we need to deconstruct that so that at least our people can understand our women are actually empowered, you know. The other challenge is the land, sharing of resources. That is land. Land is a critical issue in this country. But if you go to the registry here, thank God now they are digitizing and all that. But of course, there are a lot of cartels. They are trying to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things, and even trying to backdate issues. And shame on them, because that is very bad. How do you backdate issues? Like, for example, we backdate this land that it belongs to KBC to 1960s. You know, that is very bad. You find many women, when it comes to that matter, that particular docket, they will not be there to be there, because many people say one of the many ways for you to die is to actually have a land tussle. And it is true, we have seen very many people die out of land. So women do not have land, and women do not have, it's recently many women are owning even big cars and all that. When you go to borrow a loan in the bank, it's a challenge, because they will ask you who is your husband, or how many you have had before. So you look at that issue. Women are still looking, the men are, they're still looking at you, nani yako nyuma yako, you know. So that is also a very big hindrance to women empowerment, and also in women and leadership and decision making table. The other challenge is you find that women don't have that esteem, you know that esteem, and they want to play it, the woman, you know, you want to look feminine and all that. Therefore, if you get into politics, my sister here, Cynthia Mheshimiwa, can tell you, they look at you mwenye kichwa gumu, you know, you are hard-headed, you know. So that stereotype alone, for very many women, they will not get into that. So it's a big of it's a challenge, I can tell you. But nevertheless, the issue of FGM, we need to be very, very, very careful. You know, Muranga, we are reading on that. You know, statistics don't lie. We saw that, and I was very sad. I nearly said that I don't come from Muranga, but anyway, I come from Muranga. So that's a challenge, and it is now coming up. It is evolving. You know, it was not, you know, long time we knew people, maybe there will be women being circumcised, but these days there's some involvement. We only know when it has happened. So as a government, people need to know what is happening. Where can we stop it? Because we only know when things go wrong, somebody is in hospital, is dying or breathing, and you know it has already happened. So FGM is something that is not very good, and I know one of the papers that will be presented at New York, CSW. You know, women are traveling there. That is one of them. The other thing is the men inclusion. We will have a docket on men inclusion, because for us to be able to win the FGM, to be able to win on women leadership, the to that gender rule, we need to bring the men on board, so that when the men realizes that these are human beings like us, then we can be able to work together. And the last question, the question that I always ask, and I want to ask it here. Today we are talking about a to-that gender rule that is affecting women. Tomorrow, and our men are actually treating us as such, and with a lot of, you know, a lot of malice, a lot of issues, and you know, like they keep saying, that bill will go down. I want to ask them, in a few years' time, if we'll be talking about them, do they want the bill to go down? So we must be very objective and make sure that this bill is about gender, and gender can be male or female. So today it's the women who are down. Tomorrow it could be women. It could be men. Now, how you treat us here will determine how we shall treat you when you are there.
All right. We are hoping it will be a good one, because I'm quite sure we have quite empowered our women. And we were still on the FGM debate, and also you're now a second-time member of parliament. And looking at some of the challenges that I've interviewed women who are seeking political seats, she has affirmed that indeed it was quite a challenge. But you were able to wade through all these issues, and now you're a second-time legislator. Some of the challenges that you have faced while seeking an electoral seat, and how have you been able to actually overcome them?
Thank you so much. You've rightly put that I'm a second-term MP. Yeah? Of course, one is in the county assembly. I was a member of the county assembly. Of course, the roles in being a member of county assembly and member of the national assembly are the same. Legislation, oversight, representation, and such kind of things. Like she said, like my colleague Chege said, it's not easy being a woman and running for office. And you see there's a direct relationship between the patriarchal nature of our society and the politics. Just the same way it was construed that gender issues are women issues, it is also political issues are male issues. It is that basic and plain. Of course, in my first running for office, I was running against men. And of course, we ran and did all that we were able to do, and then here we are. I want to speak about the relationship between the patriarchal society that we have and politics. It has a direct relationship. Like Madam Chege said, when you go to the hotel, they will bring a bill and they'll give it to a man. But as soon as you get to politics, like right now, I don't enjoy the privilege of having a man pay for my bills. Actually, the bills come to my table. So as soon as you're in politics, you are considered now to be on the other part or the other side of the gender.
You're more or less like a
yes, a man, yes. So there's a direct relationship between the patriarchal nature of society we have and the politics. And that is why for them, it's, of course, we are doing well and we're doing better. That is why we have more female governors elected. We have female senators elected right from 2017. We have more female MCAs elected right from 2017. There was none in my county in 2013, but in 2017 there were 6. In 2022, of course, it went down, but at least it's not nothing. We still have 3 in the county assembly. So when we talk about the challenges that women go through, we go through all the challenges that can be mentioned, right from education and the health issues, the cultural issues. The cultural issues are even harder. Of course, they will not ask a man whether he is married or not, but that will be question and interview question number 1 for women. Are you married? If you're not married, you're not even eligible. Of course, it's not in the constitution, but our cultures are actually putting it as part of it. It is very hard, and it was very hard for me because the first time I ran for office, I wasn't married. I was a young girl from the university, 23 years old. So I had to answer that question. Can you imagine answering old men how you're not married and you're a woman, you're also not allowed to look for a husband. It is the husband who's supposed to look for you. You know, it's a very hard question and tricky question to answer. And you have to find a way of answering it satisfactorily for them to actually accept you. But I always say that I think if you have the will, especially for women, and I remember that there's a statement that Madam Chege made some time back when she was appearing on an issue on a TV station. And she said, I think the fact that women are ignorant about the politics is what gives men the upper hand. And of course, I want to say I agree with her because, you see, you look at what they are going to ask you and you even fear trying or attempting to answer them. And then you say, let me leave it. Let them run for it. I will not run for it. You see, you must be able to actually want to get into those murky waters for you to get a difference, because we cannot keep saying here that we want women in leadership, we want women in decision-making positions, but we are not going there. You know, politics is not very easy, and it's not very hard as well. It's just about how you strike the balance, and then you're able to go out there. So we have so many cultural issues that are affecting us, including and not limited to also finances. You see, the woman in the house is just the neck, like they would say there's a head. And you know, when the head says no, it's like a no for other cultures. And that's why there's a connotation that for people who are in politics, they actually thick-headed, hard-headed, vichwangumu, so to speak. But you see, it also takes the effort of men for women to rise up in politics, because one, you have to be able to look morally upright or be morally upright. Actually, you have to be morally upright, because the standards that are used to measure women are higher than the standards that are used to measure men. So for you to actually survive and not answer the first question of are you married or not, you must be married. And for you to have a working marriage, you must have an understanding between you and your husband or your spouse, so for that matter. And you must have this man to be able to support you. And for you to earn his his support, you must be one very morally upright person, one very respectful person, and one person who actually listens for you to be able to maneuver that. So it is actually an effort that men has to take, and it is a culture that you see previously in many cultures, there's no debate between a woman and a man. If you are the wife, you take orders. You don't get to suggest what happens. But it has to also take the effort of men for them to be able to bridge this cultural gap that we have. I was seeing that this year we have the theme for this particular year is digital. So we have to make everyone digital. Of course, I don't know if I am overthinking, but I was wondering, like, before we talk about being digital in this country, why are we not talking about the education levels of our people? Women face so many issues in terms of education. You look at the transition rates from primary. At primary, we are okay. The girls and the boys are okay. At secondary, we start having issues. Those issues come because the issue of FGM coming in, the issue of early marriages start coming in, the issue of early pregnancies start coming in. So we start losing the numbers when these girls are 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And we have a big problem. And we also have issues of health. You see, women face a lot of issues. If you go to the hospital today and you ask them to show you the data and tell them how many people came to the hospital, they'll tell you 100 women came and 43 men came. So women also are people who actually go to the hospital more. Why? Because of these maternal complications most of the time, and they're the people who get affected by so many things. You know, when there's no food in the house, you stay and then your kids will eat. Like, everyone will eat and you stay, so you remain also malnutritioned. There's also issues of the land ownership and all those kind of issues. I also, the issue of fertility. You know, there's a relationship between education and fertility. If you look at, of course, fertility is a very good word and a very positive word when it is used statistically, but they say the devil is in the details. Fertility means how many children was this girl or this woman able to have. If you look at fertility as opposed or compared to issues of education, for whoever, if you do look at the statistics that are existing now, for whoever did not attend any education, any formal education, they have more children. And because they started having the children early. For any person who went to secondary, the level of fertility starts reducing. For anyone who attended tertiary, the level of fertility is even lower. Not that they cannot produce, but they are now knowledgeable and they have more information about how to be able to reduce it and all those kind of things. So when I saw Let Us Digital, and I was like, man, I think we have more pressing needs in this country, starting from health and the education and all those kind of things.
It's a good thing that you've mentioned the education, because that was where I was coming to. And looking at the retrogressive cultural practices, including early marriages. And we saw that when it comes to these issues, there was a spike during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we haven't really taken stock of what exactly happened during the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of the girl-child education, so that we may try and, as we're picking up the economy, we also pick up those who we left, because early marriages, we saw them. We saw FGM cases, but we haven't really as a country taken stock to know exactly what transpired back then and how we can be able to mitigate that. I would like you to touch on that.
Yeah, first of all, COVID-19 was with us, and I think still COVID is still there, so one needs to be very careful. On education bit, we realized that many girls got impregnated, and therefore, as much as we were talking about 100% transition to high schools, then we also need now to go further and bring a conversation on 100% retainer, because once they maybe from 2, they drop because of pregnancies, lack of school fees, FGM, early marriages, and all that. So we need to look at that. And I want to urge all the women of this country, the women who are in position of power, and starting with my sister here, and we have agreed, they need, when they go to parliament or governor or wherever, they need not to be honorary men, because we will remain women, and we shall fight as women. We shall not be men. We will remain women, you know. So they should actually be able to mention the names of other women in a room full of opportunities, you know. That is one of the ways to be able to, sisterhood, to be able to be together and all that. When you look at the digital, I'll talk about the women because it's a women issue now. We have very many women who lost when during the general election, and I cannot leave them behind because I know some of them are even suicidal right now. And I want to urge the president, because he is looking for women he can be able to assimilate. We have an elite group of women who lost in 2017, like we resigned in the university, for example. Others even left CEOs jobs. That was 2017. Then we have 2022. Another group. So 2027, most likely we shall not have many women because they'll be fearing, because once they lose, then they lose, and they are called losers, and they are called a politically exposed person. So that one, we need to look at it. About digital, I want to urge the mobile networks in this country, without mentioning them because I don't want to advertise any one of them. They haven't given me the job to do that. But I want to urge them, at least they should increase the GB or the 4Gs, the whatever, so that that woman in the village can actually have a phone that can hold that up. Because we talk about being digital, but look at our women. They have kababes. Sometimes you set them even you can send them some money. They're like, hey, I didn't see because my phone was full. So we should be looking at the digital space to be able to have more space, be it in computers, but more so in our phones, because we are talking of a mobile app. That mobile app, my mother needs to have a phone that is affordable, not like the ones that we are using with Njue and yourselves here, that is affordable to that lady, so that when we say we need to get this app, that phone can be able to hold the app. Otherwise, this digital thing is a very fantastic thing, and actually it is well thought, and innovation and women are doing fantastic things with digital spaces. But let's look at which women are we talking about. Because these women, they need to come from the grassroots. Mweshimwe, as she goes to Nandi, she's supposed to be able to send photos and even letters over the phone, and there's communication. But that's not the case with every woman in the village. So digital issue, we still have something to do, and I am sure they will think about it because many people are talking about it.
It's a good thing that Mweshimwe has scratched the surface in regards to that. And because of the interest of time, Mweshimwe, in your final remarks, I would like you to touch also on the boy child, because at the end of the day, I'm quite sure, being the women of this country, being the women of this world, will you not let the boy child be forgotten? And saying this, there's the second lady, Dorcas Rigathi, is actually in the United States to vouch for the boy child. I'd like you to touch on that as we wind up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that is a very important discussion that we must have as a country. Just like the girl child was a very important discussion that we had as a country. And I want to say that the gains that we have right now in regards to having better numbers and retention numbers in the schools, and even opportunities, employment opportunities, and even political spaces, is a result of concerted efforts that were clearly put down, objectives that were clearly put down, and were, had people tasked to be able to see to it that they are all achieved. These are what we're seeing right now. Me and Madam Shage coming here today is a product of exactly that. And I want to say that we are not yet there for the girl child, but not badly off. But looks like we paid attention to the girl child until we lost the boy child. And I want to say that I watched Her Excellency Pastor Dorcas Rigathi while she was speaking about the boy child. Of course, every woman in this country is a mother of boys and a mother of girls. The issues that affect girls are equally heavy to us as the issues that affect boys, because we have both girls and boys. Boy child, so to speak, has had a lot of issues. And some of them, you see, there's a difference between, I think, the way men and women were made, even biologically, and all those kind of things. They are wired to keep quiet. They are wired to sort out their issues and die with them. They are told, because you're a man, you cannot cry, and you cannot go telling everyone that you have 1 and 2, 3 or 4 issues. Women are different, on the other hand. They will scream their lungs out. They will go telling everyone and anyone that cares to listen that they have such and such a problem. We have gotten to a point where we are now not raising responsible men for the future. The boys that we have are not transitioning to responsible men. But you see, the effects of having irresponsible man is also affecting the responsible and well-to-do girl, because one, who gets to marry these girls? That is why you hear the discussions of LGBTQ coming up and all those kind of things, because the girl is empowered and the boy is not empowered to be able to meet the needs and the standards of this girl. It is already a problem. And even if you go to the villages, like yesterday in my county, I am glad I have a very good SEC in Tindred. Her name is Esther. She was doing some sort of crackdown into the liquor dens that are there. Let me tell you this, the situation is pathetic. If you look at the smokers, if you look at the people who drink alcohol, I'm not saying there are no women who drink, they do, but the percentages are lower. The percentages for men and boys is higher. So can you imagine our villages right now as we speak, because that's something that we are able to raise as a leadership, and we're actually dealing with it. In every locality, local center, there's a drinking den. A drinking den that is not regulated. A boy in class 8, a boy in Form 1, a boy in Form 2 actually walks into those dens. And do you know what they get in those dens? They get alcohol, and they also get women who are actually there to hawk sex. It is very pathetic. It is very bad. We are actually losing our boys when they go to university. They don't finish their schooling. When they get a job, they cannot stay or keep a job because of the issues that they are carrying. So I want to say that we also must pay attention to the boy child. Pay attention to the boy child. So we have girl and boy child doing well, and then we will do well as a country. All
right, let's put a cap right there. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Cynthia Muge, who is the Nandi County MP, or if you like, the women rep. And thank you so much for that insight. We're also having Julia Chege, who is a governance expert and also from the University of Nairobi. Clarion Core is that at the end of the day, as we pull on one direction, we shouldn't forget the other. Quite good insight. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and thank you so much. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us. Let's continue this conversation on social media. I see my colleague Khalid Abdullahi, who is on standby for Kuruzi Mashinani and Tamrini. Thank you so much for joining us, and have yourself a blessed afternoon.